Hello, everyone.
So thank you for coming to hear us talk about how to enrich Sitecore experience and really Sitecore with Power BI. I'm Ben Adamski. I'm on the left over here, and this is Boris and I. We're with Avanade.
Yesterday, yes.
And this is us yesterday as we arrived at the event here. So I'm with Avanade out of Chicago. I've worked with Sitecore for about the past 10 years. I've kind of done a broad spectrum of projects from commerce to digital marketing, marketing automation with EXM and so forth. I presented at a symposium before on commerce as well as Federated Experience Manager.
And I'm Boris, and I've been with Avanade for the past 3 years. I've been doing Sitecore since, I would say, 2009, done over 20 Sitecore installations, but right now I'm focused on enterprise, big-scale Sitecore implementations.
So a little bit about Avanade. We've done a number of Sitecore awards, especially in the last 4 years. We've done the most implementations on Azure. We deliver our projects from a number of centers across the globe, and we've got a lot of Sitecore certified developers. So what are we here to talk to you about today? First, we really want to show why Power BI adds a lot of value to your Sitecore instance. Boris is going to talk about how easy it is to get started, and quite honestly, with how little code. And we're going to talk about kind of how to unlock some of that intelligence in real time, especially around commerce and retail scenarios. And then we're going to wrap up with some conversational business intelligence as well. So during this session, we're going to really focus on how to connect your data. So with Sitecore, that's XConnect. We're going to talk about how to define the relationships between your data. So that's between your experience analytics and your commerce data, and maybe some other integrations you have, whether it's CRM or maybe some social data and so forth. We're going to talk about how to combine that together, how to visualize that, how you can create reports and dashboards, how you can share those out, and once they're shared out, how you can have your end users help optimize your business. So we're going to start off with a brief history of Power BI. We're going to kind of dive into why it matters to you and kind of what the flow is for getting started with it. So Power BI actually came out in 2006. It was kind of a secret project that Microsoft had using some SQL Server analysis services. And you'll hear it was like codename Gemini. You'll hear things such as Power Pivot and Data Explorer as it evolved from 2009 to 2013. And then in 2015, Microsoft actually released a preview of Power BI. It had a ton of people jump on to test it out in preview and exited preview in July of 2015. And now it's kind of synonymous with data analytics, especially on the Microsoft stack. So what is it? It allows you to connect to hundreds of data sources, produce these beautiful reports, enable your end users with self-service analytics. It scales across your enterprise. You can easily manage the security, access, and what devices people can get it on. And you can really help your business stay in the know. So it's really important to embrace Power BI because it's self-service business analytics. So it really appeals to a variety of audiences. Whether you're a data analyst, you're an executive, whether you're the IT department, or even a developer. So if you're a data analyst, you have the data all at your fingertips. You can build these reports easily without code. You're not having to beg people to give you an endpoint. You can import what's available. If you're an executive, you can get your analytics data and ask questions on almost any device, whether it's your watch or whether it's your phone in your hand, a website, or a desktop app. There's endless possibilities to access your data, and it's consistent and up-to-date data all the time. IT departments honestly love it because security is native in there. You can control who has access to reports and what they have access to. So maybe you want somebody to have access to just your experience analytics, but not your commerce data, because this can be extremely sensitive. And developers can put these reports across a number of platforms. And we talked about it, your business intelligence is only as good as your data, and you really have endless integrations. So things like OData or Web API, you can see the image on the screen here shows just some of the sources that are available, and these are file sources. There's database, Azure, so forth. So they add them all the time. There's hundreds available right now. Here's some of them, so you can see there's things outside of Sitecore like Salesforce and Twilio, and you can even integrate with like GitHub and pull in when your code's released, so you could compare how it performs and converts based on different releases. So the real reason why you want Power BI is to be able to answer these questions easily. How do I improve interaction? How How are visitors using my site? Why are they abandoning? In order to answer those questions, you need data, and that data needs to be visualized, and that's where Power BI comes in. So why would you want to add Sitecore in the mix? Or if you have Power BI, why would you want to add Sitecore as a data source? Or if you have Sitecore, why would I want to bring Power BI into the stack? Sitecore gives you a ton of rich analytic data through your experience database. You're capturing all this data, and you get some reports out of the box that are great, but we're going to really show you the advantage of Power BI. So things like conversational analytics and so forth. So you really want to make your data beautiful, and that's where Power BI comes into the stack. And not only beautiful, but self-service. So we know we have so much data coming in: content data, commerce data, marketing data from our campaigns, customer data. Maybe you've got some third-party data flowing in. You've got analytics coming in from email campaigns, things like Alexa, maybe even AR, VR, mobile apps, and so forth. That all is your customer experience data. And it's a lot to visualize and a lot of data sources to pull together. And Sitecore pulls together a good amount of them, but when you have even more and external integrations, you need a tool like Power BI. So at the end of the day, it's here to help you make faster, more informed decisions. So that instant access on every device, the complete picture from every source. So if it's commerce, you want your commerce data from your website as well as from your retail point of sale, all in one place, integrated together, so you can track how your different channels perform, and you want everyone in the loop. You don't want somebody, pulling some report in Excel and, sharing it around, and you don't want somebody printing off something and putting it in a meeting. Let's get the real-time data all the time. And it really helps you connect the dots. So you've got experience profile data, you've got things like Cortex doing machine learning. How do you know if this is effective? Power BI is there to really connect all the dots so that you can optimize your experience. So Boris is going to show how to get started here. I'll kick it off real quick and just say there's kind of 6 building blocks. So you're familiar with all the terms of Sitecore. So it might be, standard values and those kind of things. But let's talk about some Power BI building blocks and terms. So data sets, that's how customers interact with your content. It's your data. Workspaces are kind of that container for everything you're doing in Power BI. Reports, they're a collection of the visuals, and they contain a data set, and they can span 1 or more pages. A dashboard is kind of a piece of a report, a snapshot of something that you want to pin to a dashboard to track. It's a piece of a report. And then a visualization is a small granular component. It can be something like a chart or a data card. And then you have tiles, and that's a single visualization in and of itself. And tiles can go on dashboards and so forth. And so let's talk briefly about the flow, and then Boris is going to jump into a demo here. So really it starts by gathering your data, transforming the data, and Boris will touch on that, but that's really just kind of cleaning everything up so you can help facilitate users who are going to assemble things. You don't want a bunch of GUIDs and things like that. You want to model the data, so that's kind of building the relationships, what connects where. And you want to visualize it. Visualizations are dashboards and reports and things like that. Once you visualize it, it's an iterative process of kind of analyzing and tweaking your dashboard and kind of refining it to what you need. And then you want to publish to the Power BI service. So, you have the ability to share this and, kind of publish out to a service so that you are able to share it. And you're publishing out visualizations and dashboards and so forth. And then you want to interact with it. So real-time filtering in the app and so forth. It's not just dead data, it's alive. And you can easily tap and drill into and refine your data on the fly.
Well, yeah, thank you, Ben. So now that we learned pretty much everything about Power BI, we're going to look at how we can integrate it with Sitecore. And the good thing is that it is almost have everything we need to complete the picture. So now let's get started. We have XConnect Client API. That endpoint gives us access to interactions, contacts, devices, essentially everything that client or user does on the client. The website data, it's available out of the box. We just have to connect to it. We have to provide authentication, and we can pull this data into our Power BI without writing any code. Next, we can use OData item services. Now, as we're going to see later on, when we get data into Sitecore, from Sitecore into Power BI, in many cases we're getting essentially GUIDs. We are not getting meaningful data. Now, obviously, as Ben mentioned, we can convert this data in many ways. We can create custom tables in Power BI. We can export Excel document with GUID to name conversion. Or we can just connect to Sitecore itself and pull the data we need from Sitecore. This is actually a new endpoint provided by Sitecore. It's OData. It is OData endpoint. And it gives us read access to essentially all content of Sitecore. So that's very useful endpoint when you deal with essentially campaigns or goals or anything like that. The other endpoint is actually, it's not necessarily Sitecore experience, but it is experience commerce. So that endpoint gives us access into what users are doing on your commerce side. The purchases, the sales, the orders, anything that is in commerce can be extracted through that endpoint. There are tens of GET requests available out of the box provided by Sitecore. And the last one, obviously, as a developers, it's a technical conference at the end. As a developers, we always want to write a code. So if we are not satisfied with what we get, we can write our extensions. Experience Commerce and XConnect, they are modular. And essentially, they are component-driven driven architecture, developed in a component-driven way. So you can inject your own components without actually writing any complex code. So that's essentially the only slide that you're going to see today that contains a code. And I think our message today is that you can start with Power BI without writing any code. And unfortunately, I guess for us developers, it's the reality. But maybe it's good. Now we can actually give a business access to the data without slowing down the progress. And as Sitecore is saying, essentially we're giving ownership of the business back to business.
Absolutely, and it's really self-service. That's kind of the goal here, is to use what's out of the box in Sitecore and visualize it in Power BI. So you can focus on the charts and visualizations and mobile apps and so forth, versus having to write a ton of code. That's the beauty of the architecture of Sitecore.
But even if you want to write a code here, you're not going to write a lot, trust me. It's literally 20, 30 lines of code just to get the data you need. It's very simple. Now, let's look at other things. So let's assume you have external systems, and we all do. Sitecore is an enterprise-grade system. You have CRMs, you have all other components, you have analytics, maybe by Google Analytics. So let's assume you want to integrate the data into your global picture of your 360 view of a customer.
Or 360 view of your business.
Of your business even. How do we do that? Well, fortunately enough, there are tons of available data source plugins available out of the box. So all you need to do is to just go to Power BI, download, install it, and you have your data. Now, obviously, as this all data sources exist in different systems, they may not have data in a format that you need, or they may not be even optimized for necessarily what you want to see. And fortunately, that's what Power BI is good at. So let's look at how we can get data from Sitecore into Power BI. Okay. So let me open a new Power BI window. And it is extremely simple process.
Do I change to mirror?
Oh, it's neutral. Oh, we have technical difficulties. Oh. Wow. That's okay, we can still fix it. Okay. Oh, it's kind of big.
You just lower the resolution.
Yeah, try it here.
That's fine. Just change the scale setting. We'll scroll down. Down. No, leave that. Leave that. Leave that. Leave that. No, leave that.
No, I think it's.
Leave that as. Yeah. And then scroll down. Advanced size of text and other items. Display settings. Custom scale level. Sorry, 1 second here. We'll get this adjusted.
Oh, yeah.
And then just drop that down to 100.
Okay, done.
100. Reply. Yeah, just sign out. Now.
Oh, apology for technical difficulties.
Now you're good.
It's nice to have 4K screens, but then that's what happens when you. Okay, that's much better.
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, beautiful. So now we're gonna pull some data from Sitecore. That's the fun part. Oh, should I click OK? That's okay. Oh, it's going to take it back to.
But you're scaled too big now.
That's okay. Let's do it with the scale.
You're not going to be able to see.
We're going to open Power BI. And essentially, there are different, Sitecore provides few different endpoints. One is based on XConnect, and in this case, yeah, we're not going to be able to.
Just close it.
Yeah.
Just change the resolution. You're good to go.
So let's do this one quickly. So here we're going to get OData from XConnect. So essentially, I prepared this endpoint on this side of the screen, and so essentially, it's my local installation of Sitecore XConnect. When I click on it, I'll be presented with options, what I want actually to take from Sitecore. And I can say, in this case, I want contacts and interactions. Now, I can load this information in, or I can edit it. But for now, let's just take it in as it is. Now, so in this case, as you can see, there's no security enabled. So what we've done here is actually we disabled authentication. So we disabled the JWT token. The alternative here is to use, essentially, to use TLS of loader of sense. It can be Nginx, or it can be custom script. Essentially, you would want to cancel your TLS before it gets to Power BI, or you can actually pass JWT token as part of the authentication process here. So now we're gonna see our data. So we got our data back, and we can actually, unfortunately, we're gonna go to our models, and we can see our data. What you can see here, for example, is like a campaign ID, for example, is going to be a GUID. So one of the things we're gonna do later today is we're gonna actually convert that GUID to a meaningful name. Now, we can also get other data, like we can get, for example, campaign or data that will match here. So we're gonna do it in the same way. We're gonna click on Get Data. We're gonna say blank query, and we're gonna paste this value in. So what we have here is we have this endpoint is actually Sitecore endpoint. It's not XConnect. It's part of where Sitecore is, and here it is based on item OData item API. Here we have to pass this specific key, which actually configurable in Sitecore. So you can create and revoke this key. It's essentially an item in Sitecore. And so that gives us all children, as you can see here, of this campaign node. So, and like that, we've got our data. We've got our data from Sitecore. Now, I think that concludes the first demo, and let's go back to our demo here. Okay. Okay. Okay, so next we're going to talk about what we can do with that data. So now we've got this data from Sitecore. What will happen next? First, we have to optimize this data. We can rename columns, as we discussed. We can get data from different sources. We can get data from analytics, from maybe Google Analytics, where fields are named in a specific way. And we can get data from other external systems. So here we can bring this data together and make it more meaningful, in a sense, more searchable. Now, we're going to actually organize the data. We're going to remove unnecessary columns. We want our data set to be smaller, and we don't need to have a data that is not relevant for what we are looking for. And then we're going to tune the data. Since our goal is to share this data in cloud, we don't want to send too much data or too little data. So we need to find this proper balance between what's needed and what's available. So there are a few things that we have to look at. Essentially, model is the key. It's a foundation of what we are going to do. And having proper foundation is essential. So there are a few considerations we have to consider here. So granularity, how much data we need. So for example, if you plan on doing monthly report, do you really want to have a daily data in your reporting system? Probably not. And then normalization. The fewer joins, the better performance. When we are talking about standard SQL or relational database, joins are good and they help us organize data. But here, our goal is to actually read data. Our goal is to get data as fast as we can and in the most efficient way. So when we're talking about normalization, often we are talking about denormalization, making data flat.
Now, it's really important to set the foundation right, too. You have to get this right so that you have a strong foundation to build your analytics on top of and your insights.
Absolutely. Now, there are a few things that we need to discuss, we need to talk about. There are a few kind of vocabulary items. Relationship view. You can see this view pretty much with any relational database. That's how you essentially connect the tables, connect the models, connect the data sources. DAX, it's a collection of functions, very similar to Excel. You can write sum, you can do order by. So there are same functions. There are more of them in Power BI, but there are the same functions that you have in Excel, and they are there to help us build more meaningful reports. Measures, calculated columns, calculated tables, they're all here to give us better, more optimized view of the data.
And it makes your end users easier to apply a visualization to it.
Absolutely. And once we have our foundations created, we can move and do visualization. Now, there are a few visualizations available out of the box, and there are more can be created. Developers can create their own visualizations. There's a marketplace where you can find visualizations that may actually fit your specific needs. And now, once we have all this data modeled, that data right now exists on your Power BI local machine. Our goal is to have this data available to the wider audience where people, other developers maybe, or BI people can actually collaborate on the data. So Power BI has this on-prem type of gateway that you can install on this machine where you have your Sitecore instance running, or it can be installed on a different machine where you're going to run this off. And that gateway helps us getting data from Sitecore or external data sources, and then on schedule, push it to the cloud, make it available when we need it. So we're going to look at how to actually, we probably need to.
Yeah, just go log out and log back in. Just knock down the scaling. Turn off custom scaling and sign out. Yeah, I don't know. always a little challenge with the demo.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Excellent. Well, so now we're going to look at what we can do with the data. So I prepared this file, which actually which contains essentially few data sources that already been brought into Sitecore. They're the same data sources that I just modeled in. So we have campaigns, we have campaign list, which is essentially data that we pulled from Sitecore. We have interactions and we have contacts. So as you can see here, we have some data. This is essentially this is how this data looks like. This is unmodified data from Sitecore, clean data from Sitecore. Now, what we can do here, a few things. First, we can actually clean this data. For example, if this, for example, we don't need this column, we can just delete it. And as simple as that. Let's say we made a mistake and we want to undelete it. So the entire history of our changes is stored right here. It starts with the query itself, and then it goes back to the last change that we did.
And that's maintained as the data is refreshed.
Yeah, so it's very easy to maintain and support this data. Very straightforward process. Now in this case, you can see, like this is actually data from Sitecore, but I removed a lot of columns because I don't need them. For what we're trying to achieve here, they're just not needed.
And you have just a campaign ID and its display name here. Right. So.
Now, our next step, as we discussed, so now we got the data from external sources into Sitecore. Now we need to model this data. So without modeling, the connections are not existent, and so you cannot really build reports. And we're going to click on Modeling tab. Oh, I already have already been modeled for us. Sitecore sometimes can detect the connections between different tables.
Power BI.
Power BI can detect connections between different tables, and then cardinality will be created. So in this case, as you can see, it's one-to-many, and it is done automatically for us. Very cool feature. And now we can go and start modeling data. So as you can see, visualizing data. We don't have any reports here. So let's say we want to have traffic by campaign count by email, for example. So we can choose this chart. I kind of like it, I guess, but we can choose any other chart.
Basic bar chart.
Yeah. But first, see, we don't have counts we need, and we don't have the data we need. So to do so, what we need to do is we need actually to create a couple more fields in Sitecore. So we're going to create. So what we need to do is we need to have a campaign ID here. So what we're going to do first, before we start visualizing, is we're going to create new campaign. We're going to create new campaign, new field here, and we're going to say new column. And this is our campaign name column. So as you can see here, we're going to actually go to our table, campaign list table, and we're going to get the data. And if no data, we're going to say it's a direct traffic. So we're going to press enter, and once it's refreshed, you'll be able to see that our column is created. And we essentially denormalized our structure to make it more efficient. Now we want to get another column. We just want to create a simple measure just to show how easy it is to create measures. It's almost like Excel. And that measure will give us a count of the campaigns. So we're going to click on new, and we're going to create new measure. And like that, our measure is created. Now we can go back here, and we're going to say, I want on this chart, for example, campaign. And I want, for example, email. Oh. Oh, So we can do that. Or for example, we can do we can create another report where we can actually do distribution by campaign. So we can do something like that. We can create page level filters as well. So we can say we can create page level filters to filter the data. So the possibilities are pretty much endless. There are so much built into Power BI, and Power BI evolving every day. So yes. what you see here, there could be a lot more tomorrow.
It's very easy. I mean, this was done, really without any code. There's a couple, Power BI specific functions in that, but we, through XConnect, we were able to easily and quickly visualize this data.
Right. Now, there's an option to publish this data to remote system. That's how we take data from our local instance to remote instance. But on top of that, what can be done here, and we can show it in a second. So we can actually also schedule, for example, data refresh. And we discussed that Power BI provides us with this gateway application that allows us to do just that. And so as we speak, data is being pushed. We can do a couple of things here, but first we're going to go to our external, or actually Power BI cloud.
Power BI service in Chrome is loading in, and we can see this on the web. So this is what you can easily share out and interact with and so forth. So you can see different campaigns. You can see it looks like a lot of direct traffic, but email from Maryland is a great campaign that's got maybe 5% of the views in that.
Yeah, so. And now we can edit this report in the cloud right away, and with all the data that we have available here. Now on top of that, we can actually do more. We can actually so we can do reports. There are possibilities.
Reports, dashboards, and so forth.
The possibilities are pretty much endless here. So and now we're going to look at that specific refresh that we were talking about. So now we can schedule, for example, a daily refresh. So this is our essentially gateway. We can come here and choose to refresh, for example, daily. Once it's done, the data on schedule will be streamed from our remote or on-prem server to our cloud. And now BI people can actually go in and do deep analysis of the data.
Perfect.
So let's go back to our slides. Okay.
So the visualizations we showed, there's some pie charts. There's a ton more. There's gauges, there's donut charts, there's data cards, scatter plots. Pretty much anything you can think of is out of the box. And if out of the box is not enough, they have app source visuals. So there's people who have created other visualizations that you can easily import, and you can create your own. The one thing to consider when you're building Power BI reports is you have to find that right balance between the style and the data. You need the right combination to really bring your data to life, but you don't want some fancy graphic that overshadows the message, or you don't want to be lost in a sea of data. So it's important to always consider the right representation for what data or what message you're trying to respond to, or what question. And for some insights on that, they have the Power BI data stories gallery. So for things like commerce, if you want like a product discounting sales scenario data story, there's one there that you can easily wire up to your data source and see maybe how discounting impacts your business. Other data sources can be added as well to really build that 360 view. So if you're Sitecore PaaS, you have Azure Search, and Azure Search can easily integrate with Power BI. You can get your top search queries. You can get things like latency and like how long it takes to run a query. So maybe a slow-running search query actually hurts transactions. And if you're deployed in Azure PaaS, you can also get website health performance data. So maybe you can correlate, a certain time of day my website's slow, it impacts sales on my commerce site. So we want to pull up that dashboard real quick.
So let's look at. So we don't need to go to our Sitecore Power BI application anymore. This is another instance we've created based on our installation of Experience Commerce 9. So we've just created this simple report that contains sales, orders, campaigns, and even products. So now this report is extremely interactive. For example, let's say we want to see analysis of purchases in Maryland, right? It's very simple. We're going to click on Maryland here, and as you can see, the entire report will readjust, and the numbers now are reflective of purchases in Maryland. And that's really the power of Power BI.
And you can get this on any device, the mobile app and so forth. Let's talk about quick insights for a second.
Where did it go? There it is.
So if you have a new data set, you're not quite sure what to do with it, or you need to build something fast, or you maybe want to see what Power BI can really do for you, the beauty of it, you can run quick insights. And so quick insights, you just run it on a data source. It's a quick button right in Power BI service, and it'll create a number of charts for you. So it'll say, number of sellable items by brand, or, order totals, and you can see order totals have gone down, or count of interactions and so forth. So it can build these on demand based on the data you have. Now, obviously, you need some nice column names and so forth in order to do this, but we didn't write any, even what Boris demoed, we didn't even do that. This just really required getting the data in and running quick insights. It's that easy. So Sitecore Commerce, there's some APIs that are available to easily get data out. So things like coupons and catalog and orders and all that, those APIs all exist. And here's some in Postman here. So I think we already went through our commerce demo, so we're going to jump into really unlocking retail intelligence in real time. So we can see this is Power BI running on an Apple Watch here. So if you're an executive, you can get your data, in a meeting or anything, call someone's bluff and say, no, sales are actually this. I got it right on my wrist. So that data comes from Power BI service. So you publish from Power BI desktop up to Power BI service, and then you can see it in Power BI mobile. And it's always real time. So how can I make this even better? Well, Power BI Mobile actually has a barcode scanner built in. So if you have a barcode, you can easily scan it and get data on that product. So for a retail scenario, this makes you extremely efficient. You can walk through a store, scan something, and see what the sales are. So let's do a quick demo of this. If you can just drag it over to the other screen.
1 second. Oh.
You have to move the other app over too, probably.
Yeah, well, let's see.
Or just lower the resolution of your laptop.
Let's go.
Drag this over there.
Connect again.
Yep. Connect. I can actually just rotate
okay,
this.
that's okay.
Okay. So we have Power BI up on here, and this actually looks pretty good. So let's take a quick look at the barcode scanner. So let's scan a barcode.
Oh, it's not necessarily.
And barcode is scanned, and it's going to pull up a report here. So I have a candy wrapper, and it pulled up a report here, and it shows, easily what the traffic is for that, or what the sales are, and so forth. So I can have any type of data on here, and I can easily filter it and get more data. So if I want to tap on one of these, I can easily tap on one of the bars and so forth. So if I want to say maybe on this one, and it can refresh and update in real time. So it's really fantastic and easy to use. hide that?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I need to hide this one. Okay.
Okay, so next up, let's talk about, let's get rid of that. There we go. Perfect, so we got through our demo. So let's talk about conversational business intelligence, and this is really where the beauty of Power BI comes in. So sometimes you want to get an answer really fast, and you want it in natural language. So what were the total sales last year, or what's the top selling product? It's really intuitive to answer those questions, or to get answers to those questions when you're asking them in natural language format. And this Q&A type activity is really different from search, because it's just using Power BI data. This is your Sitecore data that you're able to ask questions to. You've never before been able to ask a question in natural language and have it answered by a tool, and Power BI gives that to you with Sitecore. So it really helps, change the paradigm of, just asking what's the top product category, where in the future you might be able to say, why was there a huge increase in sales? And Power BI could respond and say it's because you ran a campaign or because you had a new coupon. So it's really being able to utilize the full capabilities of business intelligence to make your business even smarter. So let's do a quick demo on this. Oh, on-screen code. 7967. Okay, so going back to Power BI here, Boris is going to get this on the other screen. And I rotate it here. We're going to just take a quick look at this dashboard. I can see here I get interactions and all my sales data right here, but let's go into Q&A. So I'm going to say, I'm not going to do full English, but I'll say top categories. So I hit top categories. And here it says some insights that are found. So here I can see it says, home theater and televisions have noticeably more total sale for order state of Maryland. And a certain product is noticeably more sales. And I can see I can get my top categories. It looks like in Maryland they like, I'm sorry, not in Maryland. Maryland was the insights. The answer to my question, where I just said top categories, I can say what are the top categories? It responded with the chart and said camcorders, home theater, computers, television, health and beauty. So this is all Sitecore data coming across via XConnect and Commerce APIs into Power BI that I can easily ask questions to. It's that simple. So what does Power BI really let you do? It's insights across your entire organization. And as we can see, the Power BI mobile app, I can get rich data at my fingertips asking questions. I can have these interactive and stunning reports. So I can click around on my mobile app or on the web. I have consistent analysis, so everyone's using the same data. There's no, hey, I have an Excel file somewhere, and you can easily share this with everyone. Any questions?
Actually, we don't have that much time left
Okay.
because we ran a little bit late. Maybe just one, real quick. Not too long.
That would be $1 million question. So are you aware about any adequate means of integrating Power BI reports into Speak 3 component? Because the one I know is quite ugly way of using iframes because styles are not compatible. But if making that work will basically bring unlimited possibilities of data consumption right within Sitecore.
So as far as I know, we have not tried to put a Power BI component within Speak. Power BI does have a REST API, but then you're not having the beauty of these visuals. I would say, sometimes you may want to just use the Power BI app versus trying to pull that back in. But there may be some ways to integrate that with Speak if you want to stay within that Sitecore experience.
I think it's a more of a new set of mind. Like, I have a lot of data. I need different tools to manage that data. I think Sitecore is good for analyzing Sitecore data, but to have 360 view of the customer, you really need a bigger tools.
Or even getting it to different audiences. Like executives might not have a Sitecore login, but they might use Power BI on mobile apps and so forth.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
If you want to ask them some more questions, come see them after.
Come up, hang up here.
And then
hang out here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.